Welcome to Dejobnik, your command post for clarity and perspective.
And I now give the floor to the representative of Israel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished ministers, colleagues, Secretary General, how many times has this Council met to discuss ways to advance the release of our hostages held in Gaza? How many times? Not even once. How many condemnations has this Council issued against Hamas or for their heinous October 7th massacre? Zero. Zero. Yet rather than condemning Hamas's atrocities or taking action, real action, to bring our hostages home, this Council will be voting upon a resolution to recommend granting the Palestinian Authority full membership status, a Palestinian state. How detached from reality can this Council be to dedicate its time and resources to support a resolution so disconnected to the reality on the ground? To a resolution that will have zero positive impact for any party, that will cause only destruction for years to come and harm any chance for future dialogue. Colleagues, 6 months after October 7th, the most brutal massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, this Council seeks to reward the supporters and perpetrators of these atrocities with statehood. The child-murdering Hamas rapists are watching this meeting and they are smiling. There is no bigger prize for terror than today's meeting. Let me remind everyone, the basic requirement for admission to the UN are A, permanent population, B, defined territory, C, government, and D, capacity to enter relations with other states. But, above anything else, a very important principle stated in Article 4 of the UN Charter is, and I quote, membership in the United Nations is open to all peace-loving states. Peace-loving. What a joke. Does anyone doubt that the Palestinians fail to meet these criteria? Did anyone hear any Palestinian leader even condemn the massacre of our children? The Palestinian Authority has absolutely no control over Gaza. You all know it. Everyone knows it. But even in Judea and Samaria, entire neighborhoods and cities are ruled by other terrorist gangs, Lion Den, others. And the Palestinian Authority, ironically, has no authority. So who is the Council voting to recognize today and give full membership status to? Hamas in Gaza, Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Nablus? Who's going to be in charge? While this in itself is grounds enough to reject this sick reward for Palestinian terror, the Palestinian Authority is the opposite of a peace-loving entity. The Palestinian Authority not only have not condemned the October 7th massacre, they are also paying monthly salaries to all the terrorists that took part in it, rewarding the rapists. This is a genocide-loving entity that doesn't deserve any status here. But sadly, to some of the members here, the Palestinians' inability to meet the criteria simply doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because to some of you, Palestinian statehood has nothing to do with the UN Charter or legal criteria. All it has to do with is politics and interests. The UN Charter is important to them only when it can be used against Israel. The report from the Council's Commission on the admission of new members even states it black on white. Let me quote from Clause 3 of the report, your report. And I quote, several members expressed the view that the admission of the State of Palestine to membership in the United Nations was a political matter rather than a technical or legal requirement. In other words, UN Charter be damned, international law be damned. I reiterate, international law and the UN Charter are only important when they can be weaponized against Israel. But if breaking the law means advancing the unilateral establishment of a Palestinian terror state, a Palestinian Nazi state, then by all means. They're just empty words on paper, right? What this council has decided to focus on at the expense of all other calamities around the globe is to grant a prize to terrorists. Granting the perpetrators and supporters of October 7th full membership status in the UN is the vilest reward for the vilest crimes. If this resolution passes, God forbid, this council should no longer be known as the Security Council, but as the Terror Council. The only thing that a forced unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state will do is to make any future negotiations almost impossible. As long as the Palestinians feel that they can exploit this politicized body to their benefit, why would they bother at the negotiating table or support any compromise? Do you honestly think that this resolution will make a solution more likely or change anything on the ground? The Palestinians have rejected every peace plan ever made, and they continue to support terror and boycott negotiations. And now they know that their rejectionism pays off. They can say no, no, no to any American president, but still get here what they demand, because the UN is guided by politics, not morality or truth. All this council is accomplishing through this destructive approach is making a solution unattainable. The UN is no longer about multilateralism, sadly. It is now committed to multi-terrorism. At the Security Council, terror pays off. It's shameful. I have always called out the political rot within the UN, that sadly nothing here is based on truth and justice, but toxic politicization. And today the mask has finally fallen. The Council has exposed itself. Please do not give in to politics. Do not support this dangerous resolution. How can you support a resolution that is so destructive and immoral at the worst possible moment? Colleagues, the Council was not the only entity to expose its true face this week. On Saturday night, with the launch of over 300 UAVs, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles at Israel, the Ayatollah regime's mask also fell. Iran exposed itself as the terror state that it is. But today marks another milestone in the Ayatollah regime's blood-soaked history. On April 18, 1983, a Chevrolet pickup truck packed with 2,000 pounds of explosives sped through the gates of the U.S. Embassy in Beirut, crashed into the building and detonated. This blast killed 63 people. You're talking a lot about embassies and the importance of embassies. And Hezbollah claimed responsibility. And today, April 18, 2024, exactly 41 years later, this council, the Security Council, will be addressed by an arch-terrorist whose regime funds, arms, trains, and directs Hezbollah. The Ayatollah regime's foreign minister, Hussein Amir Abdollahian, is a member of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. This terror organization, the IRGC, is responsible for carnage, bloodshed, and destruction worldwide. From terror attacks in South America and assassination plots on European and American soil to arms trafficking in Africa and terror sponsorship across the Middle East, the IRGC is in the business of murder. The IRGC is a designated terrorist organization, not only in Israel, not only in the United States, in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. Both I and my Arab and American colleagues agree that the man who will address this council later today is a terrorist. And his presence here on today of all days is further proof of how the UN has become a haven for dictatorships and terror regimes to whitewash their crimes. Colleagues, it is Iran that ensured Hamas was able to orchestrate the October 7th massacre. It is the Ayatollah regime in Tehran that has provided weaponry to Hezbollah to rain down missiles on Israeli towns and cities. It is the Ayatollah regime in Tehran that has equipped the Houthis with cruise missiles to fire at merchant vessels. And it is the Ayatollah regime that launched an unprecedented attack at Israel, a fellow UN member state, less than a week ago. Yet, instead of designating the IRGC as a terror organization and sanctioning Iran's evil regime, the Security Council opens its doors for Iran's foreign minister, for a terrorist. Can you not see what is going on here? Terror Minister Abdollahian is not here to express sorrow for his regime's brazen attack and tell this council that the Islamic Republic has changed its ways. He is here to make a mockery of you. He is here to show you all, in your suits and with your diplomatic niceties, that his country can launch an attack on another member state on Saturday, and then he can come here on Thursday to lecture you all on human rights and international law. Minister Abdollahian's presence here today is making this institution a joke. Sadly, it is clear to every dictator and terror state that the UN has lost every ounce of justice, and it is now a blob of politicized plasticine that can be molded however the tyrants choose. And the Council plays along with this destructive charade. Colleagues, if you still believe that this body holds any relevance, then I ask you, I even beg you, what action has been taken by the Council against Iran for its attack against Israel this week? The foreign minister of a genocidal regime will speak here today as his country hurtles towards nuclear weapons. Has this Council taken any action to prevent this? Nope, nothing. Instead, we have gathered today to discuss the situation in Gaza. Has it occurred to any of you that the terror minister Abdollahian is here to make sure that you focus on Gaza as opposed to his own regime's crimes? Sadly, you are being spoon-fed a script. It was written by Khamenei and edited by Sinwar, a script crafted by terrorists. Due to Khamenei and Sinwar's script, terrorists commit acts of sheer evil against Israel. They exploit civilians as human shields, and when Israel defends itself, the UN will pressure Israel to a ceasefire and ensure their survival. The terrorists know that nothing captivates the UN's attention more than Israel. As long as Israel is defending itself, all other human rights violators can continue committing crimes. Your eyes will remain on Gaza as the rest of the world burns. And this is precisely what is happening today. You sit here focused, again, on Israel, focused on Gaza. We will hear talk of international law, human rights, and many other terms this council loves to toss around. But in reality, this council as a council cares nothing about human rights or international law. You even refused to visit our communities in southern Israel, and I invited all of you, that were devastated by Hamas. Everything is political and distorted. You know better than most that the Ayatollah regime is mere weeks away from nuclear capabilities. This global sponsor has proxies across the region, sowing death and destruction. But Iran has immunity here because this rogue regime has allies here on this council that protect it and its terror proxies. This is the reason why you will never designate Hamas and Hezbollah as terror organizations, despite the whole world knowing that they are. A war still rages in Ukraine, as the country that started it sits here on this council preaching about peace and the defense of civilians. This is a backwards world. This week, we mark the one-year anniversary of the war in Sudan. Millions have fled their homes. Millions more starve. Countless civilians have been murdered. Since the start of the war in Sudan, has this council held a single minister-level meeting on the atrocities? No, not one. But today marks the fourth Ministerial Security Council debate on Gaza. The fourth. 4 on Gaza and not one on Sudan in the past year. The double standards here know no bounds. The amount of time, effort, and resources poured into Gaza makes it seem as if the rest of the world is a pure utopia. That outside of Gaza we live in a carefree world. Hakuna Matata. The only people this meeting serves, and I reiterate, are Ayatollah Khamenei and Yahya Sinwar. Some of you may think that you are serving the Palestinians, but you're not. By holding this meeting, you are aiding Khamenei and Sinwar. They control the agenda here, and hardly any of you seem to notice. Colleagues, if the UN cannot prevent wars or defend human rights, it has lost any reason to continue operating. The day will come when this organization will be shuttered. The UN, as we know it, will cease to exist, and in its place will stand a body that truly cares about human rights, that truly fights to promote peace, that is capable of putting politics aside for the sake of justice, morality, and humanity. And when that day comes, and it will, this meeting and the vote to force the establishment of a Palestinian state will be remembered as catalyst of the UN's collapse. A meeting where the world burned, but all that concerned the Security Council was helping terrorists in Gaza survive. A meeting where a terror entity could be given full membership status. This is how far the UN has fallen. And this is why the UN, in its current format, has no future. I truly pray for brighter days, for a time where the UN can successfully combat the forces of darkness, not welcome them and be influenced by them. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Dejobnik signing off.